Well, as of recently, there's been a lot of commentary about Disney and their theme park numbers and how they've even said themselves that the theme park demand is softening going into 2025. And with the ever growing and ever expanding theme park war with Universal heats up as Epic Universe is opening sometime in 2025, it seems that there's a lot of people out here talking about Disney and their theme park stuff. And Variety, of all people, which I was surprised to hear about, has an article here which doesn't paint it in the best light. I just want to read through it, see what they had to say, and give some thoughts on it. So, hi, I'm Jared with Capture the Magic, and the article from Variety is Disney's theme parks problem is a monster of its own making. Said the money might not buy happiness, but you'll need a lot of it to visit the happiest place on earth. The Walt Disney Company's latest earnings report revealed that even its iconic theme parks are struggling to keep up growth in these financially tight times. The lacking performance is reflective of larger industry trends, but the years of increasingly testing park guest tolerance for high ticket prices and additional fees might be catching up to the House of Mouse. I think they have a point. While Disney had a net positive quarter three, its experiences sector brought in just 8.4 billion, just 8.4 billion in revenue, making for a paltry 2% growth compared with this time last year. Operating profit meanwhile slipped 3% to 2.2 billion. The company chalked up the results to, quote, moderation of consumer demand that exceeded our previous expectations and noted the downturn will likely impact its domestic parks for the next few quarters. Go on and say, despite Disney's ever-growing portfolio, parks are still a vital part of the bottom line. Disney experiences, which includes Disney parks and cruise ships, make up 70% of the company's total operating income in 2023 alone. So far, this fiscal year, experiences has accounted for about 40% of Disney's total revenue. Disney Experience's sluggish quarter is partly reflective of a larger slowdown happening in the theme park industry. Comcast, owner of Universal Destinations and Experiences, reported a 10.6% decrease in parks revenue for quarter two. Six Flags saw revenue down 1%, attendance down 2%, and in-park spending down 5%, all slid backward. Despite the cool down, Disney still dominates the competition in terms of attendance. As that came out, as the Themed Entertainment Association report came out, noted that Disney claimed 8 of the top 10 most visited parks globally, with Magic Kingdom and Anaheim's Disneyland being 1 and 2. Both of those parks, however, saw only a few percentage points of growth compared with 2022, and neither has consistently achieved pre-pandemic attendance numbers. We've talked about this in another video, but this chart does show it very well right here. And we can see here, I mean, 2020, obviously everything went down, but none of the parks have recovered where they were in 2019. And if you look at, like, say, I think this is Magic Kingdom right here. I mean, its numbers are more aligned with about 2014 numbers. I think a lot of these start looking toward 2014, 2016, that's where it starts hitting, but none of them have recovered where they were before the pandemic. In general, the modest growth rates for the U.S. theme parks last year, Disney and otherwise, are especially apparent when looking at attendance overseas, which saw an increase of double and even triple-digit percentages in 2023. Venues in China and Japan are still enjoying a wave fueled by COVID restrictions being lifted. They did come out of it much later than everybody else did, and yet the pandemic bump didn't seem to do nearly as much for the U.S.-based parks. A possible explanation behind Disney's park slowdown is a similar phenomenon playing out in the live music industry. High prices are starting to outpace demand and consumers' willingness to pay up. Disney has, they've even said in the past, their idea was, getting more money out of less customers, which is what's also happening in the movie industry as well. So you're seeing less people buying tickets. They're just paying more per ticket. And I think you're seeing this in a lot of areas, theme parks and Disney being one of them. Disney vacation planning site All Ears, which keeps records of Disney World ticket prices, found that a single-day adult ticket was between $90 and $99 in 2014. Starting next year, the same ticket will cost between $119 and $189, a 32% and 90% increase, respectively. Going back another decade shows ticket prices have more than doubled since 2005 and increased almost every year between then and now. In response to the rising ticket prices, a Disney spokesperson said that the parks offer more price choices and value deals for guests than ever before, including local resident discounts and annual passes. And here is a great chart at ticket prices. So, 2005, you're talking a little bit over $50, and then it's just been a steady incline. And really, once, from 2015 to 2016 is when it really starts taking a jump. You can see there. Of course, Disney World attendance still consistently rose in previous years despite rising prices. The turning point seems to have been when Disney started adding more fees alongside the exorbitant ticket prices. The company scrapped its free Fast Pass system for its paid Genie Plus system, now Lightning Lane, in 2021, which was so disliked it made line wait times worse. At Disney World, the free airport shuttle for resort guests is now a paid add-on, while the minivan shuttle that transported guests between parks now uses surge pricing, true to its sponsor, Lyft. You know, if you look at this in 2019, you still had Fast Pass included, you have Magical Express included, so you were still getting a lot for, you know, your visit per se. And then once, you know, now you're paying even more and all these things are no longer included. You're paying extra for them. So not only are the ticket prices higher, but you add on all these extra fees of getting to your resort and, you know, getting Lightning Lane. So you're probably adding on, you know, at least per day when you're talking Lightning Lane and the tickets, an extra $30 per day. So if you paid $150 for your ticket, you might as well just call that $180, you know. So it's another way. It's almost like a tax on top of the higher ticket prices you're already paying. A Disney spokesperson said the additional fees and of the nature are now standard across the theme park industry and are competitive compared to what other parks charge for similar services like express lines. Several services have also been reintroduced due to guest demand in recent years, including free parking for resort guests and dining plans. So the only beef I have with that is Disney used to set the standard, and now they seem like their verbiage is like we're just doing what everybody else does. And that's, again, what made Disney so unique were the things that they did that nobody else did. It was the little things. It was, you know, I'm not saying that Fast Pass Plus was a perfect system, but for the most part, people enjoyed it. It was, again, it was a value add to what you were already getting on your vacation. And Disney was never cheap, but you felt like you were getting a lot for it versus, and somebody in another video in the comments said this is like you're getting microtransactions all the time on your trip, and nobody likes microtransactions, whether that's in a video game or in real life. It just seems like really being short-sighted and just wanting to make as much money as you can in the short term and not really thinking long term like I feel Disney used to in the past. The hefty ticket prices plus the cost for formerly free services have resulted in budget akin to traveling abroad, which seems to be what those who can afford a trip to Disneyland or Disney World are choosing to do instead. Why go to the Japan area of Epcot when you can go to Tokyo Disneyland and on roughly the same budget? And a lot of people think that the Tokyo Disneyland is the best theme park, like Disney park in the world. People rave about it. And that is the other thing too. Once you start charging these really high prices for your trip, yes, you're going to get into a clientele of people that can afford it, but those people also have options and they expect a certain level of service. And as ticket prices and things have gotten more expensive at Disney, a lot of the things they used to do well, one of being customer service, has fallen off. And I think that's pretty apparent. Not only that, but maintenance of rides, and more rides are down all the time. So if the customer service isn't there for these higher price, you know, ticket items, people will go once, not enjoy their trip, and the next time come around, just say, well, let's just go to Tokyo. Let's just go to Italy instead of going to Epcot to check out the Italy Pavilion. And I think people with, you know, I think Disney was built, if you look at the Disney theme parks, they were basically built off of the middle class, you know, middle class families going, enjoying their trips, and then coming back, you know, maybe not every year, but every few years to enjoy it as a family. They pass that tradition on to their children. And this is what has created Disney and being the parks behemoth that they are now. Basically, what Disney decided was they no longer wanted to cater to the middle class, and they wanted to cater to the upper echelon, the top, you know, whatever percentage of people, high earners, and price everybody else out. And I think that's part of the issue with this is a lot of people that were priced out are now just thinking they're going elsewhere, and the people who have a lot of money are sitting there maybe going once or twice and being like, I'd rather go somewhere else again. And I think this is an issue Disney really hasn't thought all the way through. And I think this is kind of starting to happen, you know, in the parks now. Disney received a costly reminder of this reality when the closure of the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser, the hotel where guests could LARP through an original Star Wars story and stay in windowless rooms starting at $2,500 a night. Yeah. For now, Disney's strategy is to continue throwing money at the problem. New attractions historically equal bigger crowds. It seemingly worked for Epcot and California Adventure last year, and a slew of major additions to the parks were announced at the recent D23 conference as part of its ongoing $60 billion investment. The company is apparently banking on these bigger and bolder attractions featuring its treasure love of beloved IPs, revitalizing park demand and justifying the ticket prices. Considering that some Disney disciples will happily take on debt to visit the parks, that bet doesn't seem totally far-fetched, but that's also assuming Disney won't do what it has done almost every year and raise prices once again. um, which they will. That's the thing too about the stuff they announced. They're going to raise prices more. Now, they don't touch in this article, which I think the headline of this article is a little bit different than how the article plays out. I mean, they are critical in some aspects, but again, this is stuff that we've talked about here. Other people talk about when it comes to Disney. The thing they didn't touch on was like Epic Universe and Universal, like increased competition. And I definitely think that is something that is playing a role into going into the future of how this is going to shape up with Epic Universe opening in 2025. Of all the stuff that Disney announced for D23, is it enough to really, let's say Epic Universe is a runaway success and really gets people coming to those parks, and it does affect Disney where they're not getting as many people coming in. Do the things Disney have opening, does that move people? It could. And it's hard to know at this point, but there's definitely more competition on the theme park side of things. And I also, they didn't touch on much, but like cruising is something that a lot of people have been turning to, as well as just traveling abroad. So as obviously a lot of the reason parks being done is the economy. So it'll be interesting to see in 2025 with Epic Universe opening, does Disney offer, which I would assume they will, some pretty heavy discounts to try and get more people to entice them to come to the parks, because they're not going to have anything new outside of parades and shows to really open in 2025 to try and offset Epic Universe. And I know, Disney's thinking, and a lot of people's thinking is that Disney is going to benefit from Epic Universe. And I'm not saying they won't have some benefit from Epic Universe, but the thing is, the dynamics of Universal and Disney are changing a bit, because one thing with Epic Universe, Universal is trying to get people to choose them over Disney, or at least the bulk of their vacation being at Universal, versus the bulk of people's vacations for the most part was Disney based, and they would go over to Universal to go for a day or two. Well, Universal is trying to flip that, where people choose to go stay at Universal and maybe they go visit a Disney park, 1 or 2 days on those. So if that does happen, that is going to impact Disney. And I'm not saying that like Universal is going to become number one in the theme park realm, but that will definitely hurt them in terms of the market share and how that affects their bottom line in terms of if more people are choosing to go spend more time and money over at Universal. They would really be banking on the stuff they announced at D23 to be a major success. If those things didn't turn the crowds over, then you would talking about a pretty unique scenario for Disney, in that, these brand new things they open up, not driving the crowds in. And this is, I think, as a consumer or a guest of theme parks, I think this is actually a scenario where you end up winning, because with increased competition, it's going to force both Universal and Disney to offer new things and to entice you to go to the parks. One of those being, obviously new experiences, but I think on some level, they're going to have to compete on price at some point. And I think you'll start seeing that maybe if, especially on Disney's side, if their new offerings they're doing are not pulling people in, they'll almost be forced to compete on price, which would then probably make Universal have to, on some level, compete on price as well. If some people are looking at, maybe they'd like to go to Universal, but Disney is significantly cheaper. That's a scenario that could play out, but it'll be interesting. I think it ultimately, more competition, if you're into theme parks, I think it's a great thing. As you get more, you get more experiences, you get two companies that are basically battling for your money and your attention. And ultimately, that's how you get really good things. But this article here, it wasn't as scathing as I thought it would be. A lot of the stuff that we talked about is, it's pretty common for things that have been discussed when it comes to Disney and stuff like that. But it's still interesting to see some of these mainstream outlets writing some critical articles when it comes to Disney's parks and stuff that, I think a lot of people that have been in the know on theme parks have talked about for a while, but the mainstream is just starting to catch up to it. But that's going to be it for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of Disney World, Universal Studios, Epic Universe, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about this article? And do you think that Disney's problem is of their own making? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.